This is the Mechanical Care Forum, and it's season 14. This season, we're capitalizing on the natural happenings of the day. We're talking shop on things related to mechanical assessment and patient treatment in the musculoskeletal therapy space with special guests on the ride home. Today, we're joined by Dr. Yoav Suprun, discussing his observations on the public's misunderstanding of musculoskeletal pain and how he's built a business of speaking and how he better educates his patients and more. All this on the ride home, today on MCF. Hey everyone, welcome back to the podcast for season 14. There have been several occasions in my career where I've had the opportunity to spend time with some very talented clinicians. I'm referring to times where I've sat down with a colleague at the end or after a patient encounter and discussed the situation. I've also had a chance to travel with some pretty amazing mechanically trained therapists on one of our humanitarian efforts and chat about a patient we saw that day. Or I've connected on the phone with a faculty member who had a memorable patient response in their physical exam that day. Some of these moments have been where I've drawn a clinical pearl or two, which has, in a small way, added to what is and continues to make me into the clinician I am today. So this season, I'm catching up with my guests after they've had a typical day in the clinic or in their work, and we're using the natural course of the day to be a content where we draw from and to take something small away and use as further knowledge or inspiration or motivation, or just to put things back in perspective on the ride home. Don't worry, we'll keep our eyes on the road and our hands on the wheel and just have a conversation. So buckle up and tag along. This episode is brought to you by Atlas Health. Atlas Health is a web-based exercise and education delivery system tailor-made for those of us who use specific end-range repeated movements. In short, it's a better way to deliver exercise and education. Here's a challenge for you. Think of an intervention for MSK patients more powerful than movement. Can't think of one? At Atlas Health, movement is their number one focus, and it's crucial for patients to get it right the first time. When they do, you as the clinician get better information and make informed decisions, and patients just get better faster. Happier patients share their success with friends and family, and there's not a whole lot more gratifying than helping someone have their whole life change for the better. Discover how to feel more confident about the movement instruction you send your patients home with Atlas Health. Look like the professional you're trying to be by delivering your instructions through a better system. Visit atlashealthx.com to see a demo, and just for MCF listeners, use the code ATLASMCF25 for immediate access and a free trial for 25 patients for free. Go to atlashealthx.com/MCF and get started today. This episode is also brought to you by Therafa. Therafa is a front-end patient intake digital platform to obtain a great portion of the medical history and pertinent symptom history from your patients. Think of it as a way to polish up your intake process with your patients. It's a technology to aid in a few things like musculoskeletal triaging, decision support, documentation automation, and care navigation, all at the point of care, and it does it from the patient's perspective, which you and I know is all too often not offered to the patient. That is, for the patient to be able to tell their story. In my opinion, after using Therafa for several months, it's ideal for the busy clinic where time is of the essence. Right now, Therafa is offering, and only for MCF listeners, 2 months, full access, totally free. Just go to therafa.com/join/MCF. All right, let's get on with it today. Yoav Suprun. He's a PT, a diplomat clinician in MDT, an MDT faculty with the Mckenzie Institute USA, a private practice owner, an author, and TED Talk speaker in Miami, Florida, USA. Come along with us on the ride home. So with me on this episode of Mechanical Care Forum on the topic of On My Ride Home, thanks for joining me on my ride home, Dr. Yoav Suprun. Yoav, thanks for joining me today.
Sure. Thanks for having me, Jason.
Yep. Now I'm going to keep my hands on the wheel and focus here, but at any rate, first things first, Yoav, tell me, what do you typically do on your commute home?
So 2 things. It takes me about half an hour, 40 minutes to go to work. That's in the morning. I speak to my parents in Israel on FaceTime. So that's always like a good time to communicate with my folks. But on the way back home, I usually like to follow up on a difficult patient and see how they are progressing, asking them questions. That's usually the case. Try to give them some more quote unquote technical support. And I think people appreciate it when you follow up and call and remember what was it that you instructed them to do. Yeah, so yeah, that's usually the case.
Interesting. And we'll talk more about that in a second. Before we jump right into what you saw in the clinic today or on the speaking circuit, as is in your case, Yoav, for those that may not be familiar with you, help them understand a little bit about what you do, where you are, and just your professional career here.
So I'm in Miami Beach. I started my journey in America in 1995. After serving 4 years in the Israeli Air Force, came to America in 95. Started as a personal trainer. Unfortunately, in my early career, as a trainer, I chose the wrong stretches in some cases when people had mechanical issues in their back or in their neck. I stretched them thinking that's the right answer. And in the process, some of my patients got much worse, or my clients then got much worse. And then I completed my doctorate in physical therapy from NYU, went to work for one of my professors who introduced me into MDT, and eventually did my diploma. And I'm a senior faculty with the Mckenzie Institute USA. And I do two things, mainly, well, three things. Number one is patient care in my office here in Miami. Number two, I do a lot of corporate education to CEOs, executives of companies, on mechanical care and prevention strategies at the workplace. And then obviously what I love to do as well is to teach clinicians about MDT. I teach all the courses. I just came back yesterday from George Washington University teaching Part A, 29 students. So it's really nice to see how many people get excited by it and wanting to continue to take Part B, C, D, extremity, exam, get certified. Some want to teach in the future. But I'm doing what I love to do, and that's explaining the misconceptions around mechanical pain, and giving people an opportunity to realize the ability to make rapid changes within patients' experience of pain. And we had patients in the course this past weekend. It was really nice to see how quickly you can affect someone by diagnosing them properly and classifying them properly, and then convincing them to do something every 1 to 2 hours for the duration of the course. So that's where I am. I'm a father of 3 little boys under the age of 5. So that's another big aspect of my life. I'm busy.
That probably should have come first, right, Yoav?
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you've never seen a late bloomer, here's a late bloomer. I'm 52 right here. Okay, there's a late bloomer. I know you're a grandpa already, right?
Yeah, how about that? Isn't that something? Yeah, that's right.
So, yeah, here we are.
They're gonna keep you
started
young.
late.
Yeah.
But I'm so happy I started late because I wasn't ready before.
Yeah, very good.
Yeah,
Awesome.
so that's
thanks.
where I am.
Yeah, thanks, Yoav. Tell me, most common, you said you, I guess, dispel myths or correct misconceptions about MSK, right? What are the most common ones you think of right off the top of your head? What are those common misconceptions?
Most common ones are that when someone is in pain, you need to stretch them. People are often confused as to what is causing my leg pain or my buttock pain or my back pain. But when it starts to radiate down into the leg or into the calf, and it's presenting like so, it's very confusing for people to realize that what you're seeing here in green is actually the pain down the leg is not the leg. It's an angry nerve root in the back.
Yeah.
With patches of numbness, people realize, well, it must be something neurological, but to explain to people that stretching is not the answer, and while it feels good, often it may not make you good, That was a big topic this weekend. You know, a foam roller and a stretch strap and getting a massage, and there's all kinds of franchises we're seeing popping around the country, stretching people. Great for my business because I'm treating those who got stretched that are much worse as a result of it. So I think the number one thing I see and preach on is stretching can absolutely make you worse in the present of a mechanical issue, whether it's in the neck or in the back, let's say spine. And so that's pretty much the number one.
When people hear that and they then see that you're moving people in order to get well, and they say, well, you're moving us to get well, so what are you doing if you're not stretching? How do you respond to that?
My common thing is I am trying to find the best position of the spine. I explain to people that the spine, for example, I'm 220 pounds. I'm raising myself now on my toes. How do I do that? My brain sends a signal down the spine. The signal exits the spine and quickly goes down to my calf muscle, and through an action potential causes the muscle to contract, and I'm able to lift myself. What people don't realize is that we can adjust our own joints. A lot of people do it. You know, they get off a sofa and they hold their back and they're walking around with a limp and they're pushing their back forward, or they're trying to do some kind of a stretch and they hear a pop and all of a sudden the back feels better. Well, there's particular movement that we are searching for. The directional preference is a very foreign concept for most people in the MSK world. And so the movement is not just to move a person. The movement is to search for that directional preference, to search for that after response that makes symptoms better, abolish, baseline change, strength returns. And so when students see it in the course, we saw a few patients this weekend. For example, one of the patients was he's doing his master's in exercise physiology and kinesiology. He's an athletic trainer. He's a running coach. And he's getting this progressive weakness down the legs, and he's trying to strengthen his legs and stretching it, and he's stretching the pain away. And meanwhile, he's getting worse and worse over time. And when we tested him doing single leg pelvic raises, one side was extremely painful and difficult. He even said, the girth of my glute is half than the other glute. And he's trying to strengthen his glute, but he cannot. The reason that he cannot is because he has inhibition. And so the muscle cannot fire if the neural output of the muscle is not flowing. Once he realized that that movement allows him to be able to change his baseline, to do symmetrical lying supine, doing single leg pelvic raises, one leg versus the other. Once that changed within 2 days, the man was like shocked. I mean, the handshake and the thank you so much for enlightening me. Plus, his whole career is going to change. He's going to talk to other students and train people in George Washington University. So we were able to affect him and convince him that stretching and strengthening should wait until the mechanical problem is resolved. And so it's a long answer to the question, Jason, but the movement allows a person to change the resting baselines of the joints of the spine and temporarily avoid what he was doing. We asked him to stop all these other stretches. And it's amazing when people can see that less is often more. And actually, as you do less and you do the right thing, the cumulative effect is much more pronounced.
Yeah, great. Stretching where the pain is not the answer. One of the big misconceptions. What's another?
Another big one that we've been hearing the song and dance for decades is strengthen your core to avoid back pain.
Yeah.
We see people that are chiseled, ripped six-pack. It's not a HIPAA issue. It's on Instagram. I'm working with a Miami Dolphin gentleman, 25 years old, solid. He's a rock, very strong. Realized that, yes, well, he says to me, I'm strong, but for whatever reason, my back hurts, my leg feels weak, my glutes feel weak. And he realized that strengthening his core and doing all kinds of core strengthening exercises is not going to change the problem. Changing the problem is done first by educating someone on how to properly sit, obviously finding directional preference and having the patient go through repeated motions, sustained positions regularly. But someone who's strong doesn't necessarily know how to sit. And so if I'm strong, if I reduced my mechanical problem and I'm a sloucher, the chance of that mechanical problem to reoccur increases. And he understood it. And that's one example. Another example is a rower I worked with recently who actually was applying to get to Olympiada, to the Olympics in Paris. This month it's starting. And he was getting off the boat with significant back tightness. And the relief was to lie on the stomach on a big exercise, 75 centimeter exercise ball, and stretching his back, strengthening his core. And he was blown away of the quickness that his problem resolved, including the speed of pushing on the boat. His whole energy improved when we found the directional preference, the exercise that was appropriate for him. And he realized core strength has nothing to do with it. Core strength, it's important to strengthen every muscle in your body, but core strength will not save you. And so that's probably the second largest misconception I see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, two big ones for sure. So I guess you've thought about this long and hard of how can I make the largest dent in these misconceptions, right? And so you've gone down a certain track. Talk about that a bit.
I'm fortunate to love being in front of an audience. I love being in front of crowds. I love speaking about the brilliance behind what Robin Mckenzie developed and continuing his legacy, continuing his message is a gift. It's an honor. Besides working with a man and meeting him in person and traveling twice to New Zealand to spend time with him, the man was a genius, really a unique, out-of-the-box thinker. And so what I love to do is to get into organizations. So I'm a speaker for a few groups that basically what they do is they involve CEOs of companies, executives, team members of companies that are meeting once a month and sharing information on how they can improve on the business. And they always bring speakers to educate those CEOs and decision makers. And some of them already sold their companies and they're just there to help other people build and share, build and succeed. And so I come and share what mechanical pain is. And any group of members that I speak to, let's say there's 20 people in the room, 15, 16 of them had either mechanical back pain, mechanical neck pain, radicular pain down the arm or down the leg. And so the topic is very much of interest to them. And I debunk some of their misconceptions as we just spoke of. And they're like, oh, that makes sense to me. That's really something that my team members should hear. And sometimes as a result of it, I get the invitation to come and speak to their team members. And it could be 200 employees. It could be 60 employees. It can be virtual. It can be in person. And basically, telling the truth, telling why mechanical back pain and neck pain are so common. What are the current misconceptions about prevention and treatment? More importantly, what the pharmaceuticals don't want the public to know, and sharing with them how we can help them. So recently I was in Texas, 2-3 weeks ago I was in Texas, and it was nice to speak to those intelligent executives who are eager to get their problems resolved, and their employees, some of them suffer from mechanical back or neck pain. And so I put it on Mckenzie Institute USA website. I put the zip code and automatically jump a few clinicians within 10 miles. One of them happened to be a diplomat, and I know the man personally. And I was like, listen, this is who my family will go to see. He'll take good care of you. I don't care that I don't get the business out of it. I care about giving the right recommendation so a person feels better. Mm-hmm. To me, when you do what's right, eventually it's going to come back to you. Mm. And I've proven it over and over and over again. As a business owner, as someone that has 3 mortgages, I don't try to get the business all the time to me. If there's someone there and that person can quickly help or fix the problem, that's a person I will refer to. And then sometimes after a year, I get this just happened this morning. I get an email from someone who heard me a year ago and says, we have this big convention coming up, and we have 90 minutes slot that I would love for you to become a speaker and talk about the wonderful topic that you spoke to my group. Are you interested? And then comes a nice side gig out of it, and I love doing it.
Yeah. Yoav, you started out thinking, hey, I like being in front of a crowd. I like sharing what I know. I think this is of worth and of note that people should know about. And that first time you spoke to somebody, if you think way back, that was probably a 4 or 5 digit gig, wasn't it? You got paid on the first time you spoke. Or did you do a lot for free before you ever got the opportunity to speak for?
I did a lot for free first. I did a lot of public education. I used to work for Canyon Ranch, which was a large integrative medical team, integrative resorts out of Tucson, Arizona, Lenox, Massachusetts, and they opened here in Miami Beach. And the way we would book sessions, the residents and the guests of the hotel will come and listen to all of us, meaning all of us part of the integrative medical team. And so I would sell, I was the number one seller, if you may, or booker of appointments, as I was talking about mechanical pain, what it is, and a lot of people would raise their hand. Well, I have this kind of pain, I have that kind of pain, and I was like, okay, that's perfect. I think I can help you, but we need to meet in my office. I'm not going to undress you and have you lie here on the floor and start doing exercises. So it started a lot as educational talks. There was some absolutely free ones. I still do those. Less than before, just to get my name across. But that's pretty much how I started my career here in Miami Beach. I did it in Whole Foods in Miami Beach in 2008. Breakfast with a physical therapist. People sat with me. I educated them about what mechanical pain is. And if someone was interested and said, I think that's the pain I have, then I'll book an appointment in my office. But as far as speaking gigs, I think getting through a speaking circuit, getting into Vistage is one company, YPO is another company, Tiger 21 is another company. Those companies who have members, CEOs, executives that are meeting monthly are very interested in the topic of health and how that can mitigate or help reduce the chance of injuries in the workplace.
Yeah, yes, I can understand why a CEO would be interested in learning, how do I be a better leader and persuade people to follow my lead and to work harder and to do better and to bring the company along. And I can understand how they would need to learn about, the risks of, the economy and how that might influence their bottom line. But to think about mechanical pain or musculoskeletal situations, it would seem maybe by some that seems a little bit off topic or not as much. But you're saying no, they have quite the significant interest in it and they see it relevant to their work.
They absolutely see it relevant to their work because, look, the majority of employees don't want to go on workers' comp. The majority of employees want to work, earn their money, earn their respect, earn their bonus at the end of the year, and earn their promotions over time. And so I'll give you an example. A landscaping company here in Miami, one of my guys have 500 employees. So we did an educational talk. We bring the managers here. If he has an employee that's injured, I take care of them. All his employees, each and every one of them, want to continue to work. None of them that I've seen here has said, oh, I don't want to go back to work. I want to continue ride this workers' comp, and please, tell my boss I can't go back. I've never heard that. One of the reasons is that that CEO, remembers the names of all his employees, their kids. I mean, we're talking 500 people, right? So that guy is amazing. So it's like a family. And what you have noticed, Jason, post-pandemic, at least I have noticed, and those executives agree, it's very hard to hire good employees right now. People are negotiating harder. It's harder to find good people, and it's harder to keep them. And so if you have a good team, do everything as an executive, do everything you can to make sure that they and their family members are being taken care of. And MDT actually fits here beautifully. We're seeing it with integrative mechanical care with IMC out of Tallahassee, and what they successfully did with multiple companies. Largest one is Michelin of North America, Chad Gray and Mark Miller, who did it brilliantly. And I think the formula has already been used, and it shows. Companies who are self-insured definitely love MDT because that saves their bottom line. But also in general, doing an educational talk or a health retreat where you can get family members to listen to a spine specialist on prevention strategies of back and neck pain is not just for the employee, it's for their family members as well. And so all of a sudden, you're giving a gift of reducing pain, improving posture as someone age. You give people the knowledge that MRIs are often not necessary and are associated with a significant feeling of not when people read their MRI results, they often feel unwell as a result of it. And I have a case like that just now in my office. That medication is often not necessary, that movement is so important, the right movement is important, that ergonomics are important, that how we sit, how we work. And so I enjoy in my lectures getting into all those different topics and giving people the, I wouldn't say pink future, but the optimism, the ability to know that the majority of people really can get better on their own, with application of the right strategies.
Let's talk about that case you just mentioned where they got the wrong information and they struggled for up until the point where they're seeing you. Can you paint a picture of that patient and what was it about, what information they had received?
62-year-old healthy guy, have had radicular symptoms over a year. He's now with significant weakness of plantar flexion right leg, and he is so focused on the fact that the MRI findings shows severe stenosis, degenerative disc disease. The wordings there literally scare the guy, literally freaks him out. And I think the initial evaluation was mainly to calm him down. I said, listen, take 100 guys your age right now and put them in an MRI at age 62. Those are normal age-related changes. Those are not necessarily factors you should be afraid of, or you may not hurt because of that. And so he came today for a follow-up, and with a smile, his whole energy is different. And he's like, I can walk better. And, and it's like, it's God's work. I mean, I'm sitting here like thinking, the man just did one exercise 8 to 10 times a day, very diligent, every 2 hours, every 1 to 2 hours, did exactly what I asked him to do. He spat back to me everything I told him, what to do, what to avoid. He stopped his stretching, he stopped the weekly massaging, the massages, all that. I said, let's wait on that. Let's just focus on one thing. And he comes today and he's going up the stairs and he can push himself up the stairs better, and he can't. But what about my MRI finding? Your MRI findings are imaging findings. This is the only country in the world where you can quickly be directed to get an MRI, and after the MRI starts the long list of possibilities. And if you don't have surgery, often I hear from patients, if my doctor said, if I don't have surgery, I'm going to have permanent nerve damage, or if I get hit from behind, I'm going to become paralyzed. And I think this is absolutely, that should be illegal to use negative terminology where if you don't do something so radical, you're not going to be better. And we have the tools to prove it, and often it's rapidly reversible. And so it was, that's a nice case to kind of dive into.
Yeah, we hear it so often. And I guess my question is, when a guy hears that, okay, there's some positive, I should expect a good outlook, but yet they can't get that image out of their mind. Do you use any analogy? Do you use any further way to explain, to help them understand? We can say, look, the studies show that people without symptoms, these asymptomatic studies, show that this number of people will also have these. But many times patients, well, but I do have something and I do have pain. How do you react to that, Yoav?
Look, those patients who have chronicity, every day have issues that are bothering them, those are more difficult. However, we know that the majority of people have good and bad days. The majority of people have good and bad weeks. The majority of people throw their back out 2 to 3 times a year. And so what happens to your degenerative disc disease or to your severe stenosis on the good days, on the good weeks, when you can go up the stairs and you have power? In this particular case, he didn't report good and bad days because he kept doing things that he thought were helping him. And I cleaned the slate, introduced one thing. I said, we'll get back to it later on. For now, I want you to avoid certain particular stretches. And, when I showed him this, avoid this for now, avoid this, avoid flexion in standing for now, flexion in lying for now, child's pose for now, stretching your piriformis for now. He looked at me like, I've been doing this every day. Well, what's the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing, expecting different outcome. But everyone has been telling me to do it. I know. Why are you in my office? And then sometimes it's a big thing. Some people don't want to feel, dumb. People don't want to feel stupid. But sometimes, just like I felt pretty dumb when I had left-sided, and you and I talked about in the past, left-sided cervical radiculopathy, and I was stretching to the right because it made me feel better, and I realized my directional preference is lateral flexion to the left. So that's what got me into MDT, where I resolved my problem moving into the pain as opposed to away from the pain. And so that's how I deal with it. I deal with it through, as much as I can, gentle education. Sometimes I'm not gentle. I could be harsh, especially if the patient is so resistant. Sometimes I have to really control what I say, how I say, my facial expressions. I'm very passionate about it. And
Yeah.
But the goal is to get the patient to know and to spend time with them and to calm them down. And I don't know how many times I said it this past weekend in my course, calm the public down. We need to first calm the public down. People are very anxious about their findings. I had a lady this morning who said to me, another patient, she said, I'm going to go get a full body scan. I said, why? Well, my daughter convinced me, I should examine all my systems. I'm like, you're 81. Prepare yourself for a long list of very scary wordings, terminology. Well, I am aware of it, but I rather know, and then I'll deal with it based on the findings. If something I rather know versus when it's too late. Well, how did that come about? Her best friend now is dying from cancer. And so it kind of pushed her to go that route and do a full investigation. But we already know you go get an MRI and you're pain free, you're going to find things. And so the education and the conversation is very important.
Yeah. There must have been things that you look back now and you see that you used this method or this thought process or this format of speaking, but over time you realize, I don't know if that was that effective. And so I'm going to change it this way. And now you've come to a position or a point where you feel like you're more effective as a speaker because you change. What did you used to do that was less effective? What are you doing now that you feel like is more effective in conveying your message?
I think one of the big things that in the past 2 years have helped me a lot, thanks to Richard Rosedale and a bunch of excellent clinicians around the world, the EXPA study. We knew that a mechanical problem in the spine can manifest as pain in the hip, the knee, the ankle, the shoulder, the elbow, the wrist. I never really realized the percentage. And so when I did my TEDx talk last year in Breckenridge, Colorado, and I shared that 71% of hip pain is often of spinal source and 45 or 47% of shoulder pain is a neck problem. These are things that I knew in the past, but now I have the study and I show that study whenever I speak and people are blown away. And so that's something that I would say in the past 2 years, I started to do much more, and it really boosted the audience recognition of what the power of MDT, what the power that MDT can provide them with, as well as the confidence that often there is a solution beyond going to see a hip specialist, a knee specialist, a shoulder specialist, because they're looking at where the problem is. We're looking at the human being as a whole, number one, at least I am, and always trying to make sure, not trying, always making sure there is no spinal involvement.
And does that go for many of the topics and these even like myths that you're dispelling or your misconceptions you're correcting, that you're using more data, more studies?
Yes.
Yeah.
100%.
Okay. Yeah. So to be keeping up with studies is something that you'd advise, obviously, for all of us to do. And of course, that's a tall order. It's challenging just because there's only so many hours in a day, and to read papers is a challenge.
Sure, but such a strong study, a well-designed study, that we know is, we all see it in the clinic. But now to direct the public's attention to the fact that you may have extremity pain that is not the extremity, that's a big thing. When someone comes to the office with a knee replacement and says, how come my knee hurts? This is titanium. And then we fix the back pain, the back problem, and the knee pain goes away. Then comes the sad question, did I need the knee replacement?
Right.
And I tell the public ahead of time, don't you ever replace a hip. Anyone I speak to, do not replace your hip or your knee or do any shoulder replacement or surgery, whether it's arthroscopic, whatever they're promising you, don't have any of those invasive procedures or minimally invasive procedures unless you rule out first the spine. Now, can you fall? Can you kick? Can you ski and tear your ACL and have a problem that requires surgery? Of course you can. But how many people we know that fall into the trap of, oh, I'm bone on bone, I got to replace my knee, and yet it wasn't the knee.
Right.
And so I'm on a mission with that. That is something I daily enjoy and push myself to make sure people are aware of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, far too common. I just this morning had a patient with total knee 3 years ago, fell recently because the leg kept buckling. And upon further questioning, that leg never was really strong after the surgery. Now she's got, oh, and by the way, there's some symptoms above and below the knee, of course. And when I sit her up into tall posture, her knee gets worse while sitting there. And so you can see where this is going. And you've got to have that difficult conversation. But, it's one of those things Todd Edelson's known for saying, let's not trip over something behind us, right? Let's move forward. There's nothing we can do about you having had that surgery, whether it was necessary or not. We may not be able to know for sure. All we know is let's take care of what we need to now. But yeah, it's far too common. And I think that's good advice, maybe a charge for all of us to really get a little bit more visible. Lynn Poo, who just recently put that case series on the headaches with Ron Shank's help, the cervicogenic headache and how MDT manages cervicogenic headaches. Her mantra is, let's be bold and be visible, right? So I think we could all use to listen to her as well. Tell us a little bit more about what you're seeing in teaching these courses. We know that it's been, dollars put towards CEUs may have been kind of reduced since the pandemic, that it's not getting any cheaper for companies to put clinicians through, and there may be some difficulties for clinicians to get to courses. How do you see that we increase this message to get to more physical therapists? It's interesting. You had your lateral flexion that you needed for your arm. I think of Audrey Long, who had persisting back pain for months, and in 3 days, she was dramatically better after talking to someone before she was trained in MDT by someone who was trained in MDT. So it's almost like those who have experienced it firsthand, struggled with something, saw the light, they go on to kind of carry that torch and really be an advocate for this method. But how do you see we get it out more so that it trickles down to the public?
There's a couple of strategies for that, Jason. Number one is we need to get in front of the students early on. We need to do educational talks within certain programs. We can get in and do that. We had in Miami the student conclave a few years ago, so I spoke to them about mechanical pain, and I know students graduated and started to take Part A. There's colleges that are now offering Part A and Part B. It depends on the faculty. Obviously, that's there. Look, physical therapy program is a buffet of techniques. They prepare a student to pass the licensure within the state. That's what physical therapy programs do. Some of them give you the tools to start treating on day one, but many don't. The way to do it is to share stories like my neck, like Audrey's back early on. I think social media has to become a more vibrant way for us to deliver that message and get students to realize, that is what mechanical pain is. Yes, I can take a weekend course and become a therapist that does dry needling, but if I really want to help the public, I should start going into the MDT route, because the majority of injuries actually don't occur in my office. They occur when people leave our office. And so finding those therapists who, and look, I own real estate here in Miami. It would have been very easy for me to adding on top of my MDT credentials, dry needling. I can, even in this room, I own multiple offices here. I could have multiple small rooms and put needles in people and darken the light and put some relaxing music. And I could have probably quadrupled my income, but I wouldn't feel that when I go to sleep at night, I want to feel that I'm doing what's right. It's very important for me. And so I prefer doing the one-on-one and consulting and giving people the ability to know and learn how to take care of themselves. And when I do what's right, they're going to come out, they're going to come back for other joints, and they're going to tell all their friends. And that seems to work very well for me. Mm-hmm. So do what's right and get in front of the students early on. I invite a lot of students who are kids of my patients or heard about me through my speaking engagements. Someone will come, my daughter wants to go into PT school. Okay, have her call me and I'll talk to her about what do I think is the right way or the right format to go about your career in physical therapy. Because to be honest, I don't feel very proud, unfortunately, to say I'm a physical therapist. I'm not. I enjoy more to say I'm a mechanical therapist, and people are like, what is a mechanical therapist? And I tell them what it is. Yeah. But our profession got really downgraded. We can see it by the payment for Medicare. We can see it by what some doctors are saying. Oh, don't go to PT. They'll just destroy my surgery. Just walk, you'll be fine. And it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate that we got to a point where the public is not educated as to what we do, what we, meaning MDT clinicians, do. And so I think we all have to get comfortable speaking to students, getting students next to us, and promoting the brilliance behind what Robin Mckenzie developed, which is teaching the public how to fish and not give them the fish.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You talked at the very beginning when we started about catching up with a patient that might be a challenging patient, one that may need reinforcement at the end of your day on your way home, just to make sure they're doing okay, someone that maybe you evaluated earlier in the day. What do you know about, and what have you learned about this concierge practice you have and those additional touch points, whether it's on the same day or a few days later, or using telehealth to see them in their home or their office or whatever? Talk to us a bit about this advanced, I guess, multifaceted, different methods of engagement with the patient, and how important is that?
I think especially since the pandemic, we saw the power. We knew the power of MDT, but the pandemic has really solidified that there's no method out there that can help guide a patient to move in the right direction virtually other than MDT. You know, there's a lot of people who have very good hands that have been trained to manipulate and mobilize. But at the end of the day, and during the pandemic, I taught a chiropractic course and we had virtual patients, and it was great because no one can touch them. At the end of the day, delivering healthcare virtually and through a phone call and sometimes through a text or through a video that I'll send them is doable, and we see it happening and people appreciate it. It is definitely something that needs to be continued to improve. I was just 10 days vacation with the family, but I'm still online. I'm still in the background. People like to know that. People like to know that if something is not working well or symptoms starts to go south and they're getting worse, they can text me, they can email me, they can call me, and within a few hours, I'll get back to them. I think that's a key to my business. That's how I like to be treated. And so knowing that there's someone behind you supporting you, I wouldn't say cheering, but I'm in the background. I help them problem solve. I help them. I have a guy now who has a concierge service, and he developed severe sciatica and was very nervous, called his doctor on Friday. No one called him until Monday. Monday afternoon is when he got a phone call. Then they said, well, the doctor is fully booked right now. He can see you on Thursday. And he calls me. He's like, I'm in pain. I'm paying this concierge primary care physician. I can't see him until Thursday. Well, I called a doctor who owns 4 MRI centers. I said, listen, I have this guy. I really would love for you to get him into an MRI. I got an MRI that day. Following day, I got him to meet with a surgeon. Well, he came to the office first, and I said, injection is what you need. He's not going to operate, but injection is what you need right now. So we got him by Thursday ready to have an MRI, to have an injection. And he texted me this morning. He's now in Long Island on vacation for the summer, and he's fine. I mean, just to be able to connect the dot and help people get better through a phone, through a text, is what I enjoy doing. And often it does not require much more than just caring about how people feel. All of us, anyone who's listening to this podcast, you should know you have a spa waiting for you in heaven, because all of us are going to heaven because we are helping the public live pain-free. We do good work. We do godly work, right? So we're helping the public get better. And so as much as possible to support them in the process, I think it's very important. It's hard to do if you see 20, 25 patients a day. I have the luxury of not seeing that long list of a patient. And when they're more difficult, I will follow up on my way home. I will follow up with text a few days after the session, checking in, how you're doing, and people love it.
Yeah, no doubt. The people that are in the high volume, that are within a system that won't allow for communication in personal devices, that kind of thing, it has to be all done in their EMR or whatever. I wonder if you agree that these additional touch points, whether it's just a moment of clarification, nope, don't worry about that. Press on, keep on doing what I've got you doing. Ooh, wait, let me ask one question about that. Is it happening here or here? Okay, if it's happening there, I want you to hold off and just do the previous exercise we were doing and then come back and see me. If you need me, let me know. Those additional touch points have to reduce the total length of disability, the episode of care. They have to increase outcomes. You agree?
1,000%. 1,000%.
Yeah, yeah. It seems like this ever kind of changing. No, I need you in the office because it sounds like I need to put some overpressure. No, I don't need you in the office. And if it's a barrier for you to get to my office and it will help you see me sooner, let's just handle it while you're at work or while you're at home. And I can see you today at 3:00. That kind of seems like this ever kind of changing and responding as on the fly as the scenario dictates, whether they need to be in the office definitely or whether no, we can handle this or just a quick check. It seems like that should create a better experience overall for the patient.
1,000%. And unfortunately, we are in at times a very restrictive system that is very much concerned about, and as it should be, about confidentiality and data of patients. But anything I can do personally to make anyone feel better about their pain and get them to the right recommendation, to the right MRI if needed, or injection or medication, or just the right solution, just to calm them down, I will do everything in my power, obviously legally, to assist them in finding that key.
Yeah, yeah. We could talk a long time, but I appreciate you talking about your speaking evolution as a speaker, and congrats on the TED Talk. That's an amazing thing. Thanks for sharing those misconceptions that you spoke about, that you're seeing the public talk about and have. Thanks for sharing a little bit about what you feel like students need and what they're looking for and how the light clicks. And then even some discussion about how we integrate different forms of connection with patients. I appreciate what you're doing. Thanks for joining me on my ride home. It's been a long ride. I'm almost there. And we appreciate you joining the podcast, Yoav.
Thank you, Jason. Thank you for everything you do. You do an amazing job. So thank you for continuing to promote what we do to the public and to professionals.
And there you go with episode 408 with Yoav Suprun. Take note from Yoav that he's persuaded about these things. Dispelling people's misconceptions of the source of and the solution for musculoskeletal pain. considering the lack of evidence, yet the popularity that strengthening the core is the remedy of back pain, and instead offer what has been shown as the source and the solution. Taking these messages to the public, to your circles and in your market, and staying up on the research so you can speak from a position of being well informed. Thanks to Yoav for leading the way and getting this message out through public speaking. Don't forget our sponsors, Atlas Health, a more precise and professional way to deliver exercise and education to your patients. If you use in-range, repeated movements in sustained positions, and you teach patients to test and retest their motion, and if you're still using pictures from Google, hand-drawn stick figures, or even your patient's phone, welcome to the 21st century and get your first 25 patients free exclusively here at MCF. Go to atlashealthx.com/MCF. Click to sign up and enter your information in the code ATLASMCF25. And our other sponsor, Therafa. If you could use a better way to intake your patients, gather the relevant information before the patient even arrives, and make you more efficient, check out Therafa and take advantage of this generous offer of 2 months free. You'll find that special deal at therafa.com/join/MCF. All right, thanks for coming along on the ride with us. Be sure to come back next week and hang out with our next guest on the ride home for more of sharing experience for improved patient care.